I just want to say welcome to everybody that's logged in here tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and to all of our presenters for taking the time this evening to talk about some really important topics. We have a great mix of students in the room tonight. Some fourth-year students that are going to be graduating in just a couple of weeks. I know that time is just going to fly by. And I saw some first-year students that are just eager and anxious to learn and find out what this process is all about. So welcome to everybody that's here tonight. Sheri, I'm going to turn things over to you and mute myself and step back. Yeah, it's in your hands.
Thank you, Ryan. Welcome, everyone. We are excited to get the chance to share what we know about a topic that we love, helping optometrists find careers.
My phone, if anything interesting comes up.
Everyone, please join us in a quick exercise. Wherever you are, please put your hand in the air if you would like a job after graduation. If your hand is raised, you are in the right place. Thank you. You can put your hands down now. So before we start our presentation, if you have any questions, please send a message in the chat or write them down. We will answer any questions you have throughout the process. And if you think of questions after tonight, feel free to reach out to us directly. Let's move that. So we are ETS Vision, and we connect optometrists and practices in all 50 states. And we have been doing it since you guys were in 7th grade. So our team forms career-long relationships to help both new grads and those in a career transition. Last year, I helped 2021 grads and residents find great positions. But I also helped a 2012 grad find a practice to purchase, a 1988 grad find a position closer to family, and a 1972 grad sell their practice. Again, my name is Sheri, and I cover the Northeast state scene here. This is my contact information, which is also in the email Ryan sent out. Since we cover the entire US, and I am sure someone here is interested in moving to the Florida Keys, Hawaii, or another great state that isn't in my territory, I want to introduce our team members who cover the states not listed here. Michael, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sheri. Hello, my name is Michael, and I cover the Midwest and Western United States, along with Alaska and Hawaii. Feel free to text, call, or email me if you have any questions. And I'll be here if you have any questions about the states listed here. I'll now pass it off to Marc.
Thanks, Michael. My name is Marc, and I cover the Southeastern United States, all the way from Maryland down to Florida and over to Texas. Like Michael, if you have any questions about the states listed here or potentially interested in a career in this area, don't hesitate to reach out. Sheri, I'll let you take the reins now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marc. So in summary, ETS Vision has been recruiting since 2008. We cover all 50 states. We have screened and connected thousands of ODs with practices. And most importantly, Marc, Michael, and I only recruit optometrists. Now, we encourage you to ask a lot of questions. If you have any, go ahead and send a message in the chat and at any point during the presentation. Once you send a message, Ben will let us know and direct the question to one of us. That is Ben in the bottom right-hand corner. Ben, could you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sheri. Hello, everyone. I help with business operations here at ETS Vision, and I am one of the team members who enable our optometry recruiters to focus solely on recruiting optometrists. Like Sheri mentioned, I will be moderating questions this evening, so feel free to message me directly or the group as a whole if you have any questions. Outside of Sheri, Marc, and Michael, ETS Vision has recruiters who specialize in ophthalmologists and practice managers. We also have a support team making sure we provide you with the best recruiting experience possible. Sheri, I will pass it back to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ben. That was a little bit about us here at ETS Vision. Do you all have any questions about us or what we do at this point? I'm going to give you time to sign in and chat away.
Sheri, hi. Sorry, I had one student that sent me a question directly. Could the person who is in charge of ETS Vision on the western side of the United States please share their contact information one more time? Or maybe was that Michael? Can we put that in the chat so that that contact information can be seen again?
Yes,
Sure.
and it goes out in the email as well. Let's see. Let me see if I can.
I just saw Ben shared an email address. So
Oh, he
yes.
did? Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Perfect.
Is there another question in the chat? Or are we?
Looks like we're good to move on to the meat of the
Okay.
presentation, Sheri.
Okay, great. So now let's talk about earning the offer. When earning an offer, the first step is finding opportunities. And to do this, you have to be able to answer 2 questions. And those 2 questions are, what am I looking for? And who is looking for me? To help you narrow down what you are looking for, we have an acronym called CLAMPS. It stands for Challenge, Location, Advancement, Money, People, and Security. So challenge is how stimulating the work is, and can you learn new skills? Location, where the practice is located. Advancement, the ability to move up the ranks. Money, what you are getting compensated, including benefits. People, who you work with and those you serve. Security, how stable the position is. You have to pick 1 or 2 factors that are most important to you. When considering where you would like to work, population density is an important factor. Now on this map, you can see that the red areas are high population density and the green areas are lower population density. Since metropolitan areas tend to be saturated, they often pay less than less saturated areas. So more green on this map means more green for you. And as an example, I placed a new grad in a private practice in New York State, hours away from New York City. Compensation and challenge were their top priorities, and this full scope private practice located in a rural area was offering $150,000, which is a rare opportunity for a new grad. So how do you find opportunities? So here are some places you can find opportunities. Our website, Indeed, Salus's job board, American Optometry Association, or LinkedIn. And while these resources are great, they don't cover everything. A lot of opportunities aren't published. The 2 best ways to find these opportunities are through ETS Vision or networking. For instance, I placed a new grad in a practice that I had worked with several years ago. I was talking with the grad, and when they told me what she was looking for in a position, I immediately thought of this practice. So I called them, and the practice had plans to hire, but they hadn't done anything. They hadn't advertised the position, and the new grad got the position because they worked with ETS Vision. So through us, networking, and job boards are how you will typically find out who is looking for you. Getting specific about and prioritizing your desires is how you answer the question, what am I looking for? What would you all like to know at this point about narrowing down the opportunities you're interested in and finding opportunities that are out there?
And I saw a couple people join in, so feel free to either message me directly or send a message to the entire Zoom group and we'll get it answered for you. Or if you'd like to unmute as well.
Then I'll let you give me the go ahead when you see that the chats, we've either answered everything or.
Yeah, and Lydia was wondering if, oh, well, when is the appropriate time to contact us for a job search, third or fourth year?
So typically, either at the end of your third year, we're happy to talk with you anytime. I do talk with third year students. I've talked with people that were considering going to optometry school. We are happy to have a conversation with you. You might not know exactly what you're looking for, and that's okay. We can touch base again as it gets a little bit closer, but definitely by fall of fourth year, definitely. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, looks like we answered it.
Okay.
No more questions coming in right now, and looks like we're good to move on, Sheri.
Okay, so when you are looking, it is important to note the different types of practice modalities and what they have to offer. Private optometry practices may offer future ownership or partnership. They often have equipment to practice full scope. Typically, they have good referral relationships for continuity of care. They offer the ability to provide mentorship. Typically, they allow more time with each patient, and generally, they require fewer Saturday hours, if any. Flexibility. The owner has options to be flexible, whether it's schedule, benefits, etc. And speaking of benefits, benefits can vary. Some private practices may pay more and offer less benefits. If people or advancement are high on your clamps, private practice is likely going to interest you. And then we have ophthalmology groups. They have OCT, visual fields, and other equipment to practice full scope. Typically, the optometrists are going to see more medical exams. Some still offer a Monday through Friday schedule, and when they do require Saturdays, it is usually only a half a day. A high percentage of medical exams can mean higher income for you. And they typically offer full benefits packages, including health insurance, malpractice, 401k, etc. Challenge and money are two priorities we often see that are good fits with ophthalmology practices. And then corporate optometry, they offer a structured mentorship. Now the equipment varies, so you would want to ask about that. They have organized training, full benefits packages, again with the 401k and all that. Some offer H-1B sponsorship, and often they don't have non-competes. That can be a big plus. Also, they typically offer higher than average compensation for new grads. And they often have positions in saturated areas, including near optometry schools. So if location, money, advancement are priorities that are high on your list, you might want to consider corporate optometry. Then we have optical. Optical can be corporate or optician owned. You could be employed or independent. Compensation could be daily or hourly, or it could be you earn what you collect. They're typically high production, which can mean very high income. The benefits vary and may not be offered at all. They do typically have retail hours, which include more evenings and weekends. And you will likely refer patients out for some of the medical, as they are less likely to have equipment to treat as much as private practice or ophthalmology. So money and advancement are two clamps that we see that are a good fit with optical. And then there's private equity, whether it's ophthalmology or optometry. And even if you aren't familiar with the term private equity, you are probably familiar with some of the practices that are private equity owned. A lot of them have equipment to practice full scope. They have structured mentorship. They refer within or have great referral relationships. Often includes some weekend and or some evening hours. Great compensation packages, again, that include the full package of 401k, et cetera. And clamps, good matches are challenge, advancement, and location. Then we have mobile optometry, and this may be a modality you aren't really familiar with. They provide services to assisted living centers, and then others provide the services to businesses and schools. They offer a lot of part-time and full-time positions. They offer a flexible work schedule. If you're not a morning person, you can typically start later. If you are a morning person, you can start early and finish earlier. The schedule is Monday through Friday with no evenings or weekends, and they do typically pay higher than average compensations. It's a shorter work day. The patients are on premises, and when you see the last patient, you are done for the day. And benefits packages are typically offered for full-time, of course. Now, clamps matches would be money and people. Those are good matches on that. So we know that was a good bit about the different practice modalities. What questions do you have about them?
Haven't gotten any questions to me directly. Give you all another moment or two to type them out if you need to.
Sheri, this is Ryan. I'll ask one. I think this is a great comparison of the various practice modalities. And so, looking at all of this, if a student is interested and one of their highest priorities is they want to see a lot of ocular disease. That's they're either maybe they're going to pursue a residency in ocular disease, or that's the type of practice setting they're looking for ocular disease. What one of these practice modalities might be the best fit for them? I can tell you usually what they tell me, and I wonder if maybe that you have a different opinion there.
Sure. So I'll start by saying that for the last several years, I have placed more ODs in ophthalmology practices than in optometry private practices. That being said, everyone's clamps are different. I placed a resident last year in a corporate optometry position. They had a lot of student debt. They were very stressed about their student debt, and they happened to be in a state that corporate optometry was just offering a huge amount of money and a sign-on bonus. Now, I don't typically place medically focused ODs in corporate optometry, but corporate optometry definitely has a place, especially depending on your location. We mentioned those non-competes, that they don't have one. It's really important in a saturated area.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I guess, you know, I've worked with some students, and, you know, I think it's important that people understand, and, you know, working with a group like ETS, who has a lot of good insight and information about a practice you might be looking at. If you are interested in ocular disease, or you are interested in something like that, you just want to make sure you're asking the right questions about an ophthalmology practice. For instance, as the optometrist, are you going to be treating the ocular disease, or are you going to be doing more of the refraction and allowing the MD to treat the disease? So you need to ask those questions and understand not just the type of practice, but the practice dynamics themselves.
That's a great point, Ryan. That's very true. We do hear about some ophthalmology groups where the OD-MD relationship is not quite current, maybe, to what most practices are, but we definitely have ophthalmology groups that we work with where the OD is doing more of the refractions and less medical. We definitely work with some private practices that do a ton of medical. So it really is very individual, and we find out those details about the practices, and that's where we can help guide the students.
Yeah, excellent. And a question did come into me directly. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between private equity and corporate optometry?
Yes, so private equity is equity financed practices. They can be ophthalmology, or they can be optometry practices. Typically, it's just a large influx of money. You know, private equity, all the talk has been about them purchasing practices, and they purchase practice, and it gives the practice the ability to update things and basically influx of cash. Private equity does tend to have maybe more rules maybe that similar to corporate optometry, but typically they are more medical and run closer to a private practice. When they purchase a private practice, oftentimes they try and keep that patient base, the employees, etc. I hope that helped.
I think that's a good explanation. It's, in my experience, it has seemed a lot of private equity will come in, and you're right, they tend to purchase private practice, but they tend not to, you know, I'm speaking in generalities here. They don't tend to change the practice culture overall. Whereas, you know, corporate optometry definitely has a very an emphasis on company culture and things like that. So, you know, there are some differences, of course.
Yes. Yes.
Great. And we did have another question come in. One to let Kathy know that we will be talking a little bit more about ETS's process down the line later in the presentation. But I do want to float this question to Marc real fast. Kathy was wondering, once we being the students narrow down which modality we're interested in, do you connect us with practices directly, or is the interview process through your recruitment process first?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. And I'll be glad to try to answer that one. Yeah, we do typically, we interview every student. It could be someone graduating this year, a new grad like you guys, a 2022 grad, or we certainly work with a lot of optometrists that have been out working for several years, 2, 4, 5, 6, or 10 years or more, maybe looking to make a change. So what we do is we interview every OD very carefully before we ever present them to a practice. We try to find out exactly what they're looking for, which all these modality groups that you're looking up there, whether it's private practice, whether you're open to corporate, we make sure we present you to the practice that's what you're looking for. We don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste the practice's time if you're not interested in a certain type of practice. But we do present you directly to the practice, and typically we let the practice reach out to you directly. But now sometimes a practice will have us, they might want us to be involved somewhat with the interview process, helping set up a phone interview, helping set up a Zoom, arrange some dates and times that work like that. But most of the time the practice will just kind of take it. If they want to reach out to somebody, it's really up to them, because once in a while there might be someone we present over, they choose not to reach out to they look at the resume for whatever reason, they don't think they'll be a good fit. So, but yeah, we pretty much let the practice and the optometrist or the student work things out directly, and we keep up with the process, and we work really with that student or with that OD just as much as we work with the practice. We're working really for both of you and trying to have it work out for everyone.
Right. And I'll just add that, for instance, today I was communicating with a 2022 grad. She's been interviewing with a practice that she's really excited about. And we talked on Friday, and she was asking me if I knew what was, where the practice was. And I said, yes, he mentioned getting a contract out to you. And so I let her know today that they will be getting a contract out to her by the end of the week. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, they'll definitely, the practice will definitely let you know kind of how they want to have things run, and say, hey, could you let this candidate know offer is forthcoming?
Great.
Of course. So yeah.
Great, and Kathy thought it was very helpful. We did have another question come in about asking how difficult it is for an international student to get an H-1B sponsor, and what's the typical salary range for something like that. The international student is in their first year, and they're wondering if we think it will change over the next 4 years. Michael, do you think you'd be able to answer that one?
Thank you, Ben. I'll give it a shot. Lots happened since President Biden has taken office in that area. It appears that he has sent a bill to Congress titled U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 to make it easier for students to stay in the U.S. who are graduates of U.S. universities, especially with advanced degrees. Definitely optometry would be one. So the door is more open than it was when President Trump was in office. Now, that's partly answering your question, but at least it's a good part, because before it was a lot harder. Part of it's going to depend also on sponsorship. You're going to have the practice sponsor you in order to acquire that H-1B. And so that when they take you on your first year, which you won't need an H-1B coming right out of college, you won't need that. They realize that's coming down the pike. So I would say your chances are a lot better now than they were before.
Marc could probably add to that, because he deals with some private practices in areas that are willing to sponsor. I know corporate optometry is often able and willing to sponsor. But Marc, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the points I would make too. Certainly, you're more apt to have a chance of sponsorship with a corporate type practice, but there are a lot of private optometry practices, and if they're a good size, let's just say someone might have a 2 or 3 or 4 location practice, and they're in more of a rural area, and it could be. First of all, you need to realize that in the rural areas too, they have a very busy practice. Most of those practices are just overwhelmed with patients. And a lot of people do not want to live in rural areas, but there's a small percentage of ODs that would love to live in a rural area where it's more recreational activities. They don't want the heavy traffic. Let's just take, for example, part of my region, I cover Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland. it's the traffic is terrible up there, but you have a lot of advantages, but there's lots of areas that are just have much higher pay, and they're more apt to do a sponsorship if they're really looking for somebody, a good optometrist. They're going to have the means financially to sponsor an OD, and they're very willing to do it. And again, it's not there's a lot of private practices that probably do not want to go through a sponsorship method, but there's plenty out there that do. I've come across many and super nice practices. And usually the sponsored ODs are usually willing to stay on long-term. They're going to be there for 3 years. Then they can re-up their sponsorship again, another 3 years. And then a lot of times they turn into long-term employees once they get their green card, and it's like off to the races, and they love the practice loves them, and they've got a great career there.
And I would just add.
I would like to add something.
Go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead. Well, I would like to add something. I do work with a practice. You could call it a corporate practice. There is a hybrid type of practice, I call it, that's corporate, but they operate similar to a private practice modality. It's a mix. And I happen to have one that's in 11 states. They have over 100 locations. And the practice was founded by an H-1B sponsored doctor. And so they're very open to talk to students that need H-1B sponsorship.
And Sheri, before you tack on your extra bit, the student who had the question about the H-1B sponsorship, they were curious about the salary ranges and if it requires a higher than average salary. They've been doing some research on their own, and they've seen rules about an H-1B sponsorship having to have a higher than average salary. So if you could expand on that, that would be much appreciated.
Now that's interesting. I am not familiar with them being required to offer anything. I have found that, as Marc said, the private practices that are willing to offer it are typically in more rural areas or larger groups that have lawyers and have kind of the whole process down pat and aren't concerned about it. Marc or Michael, can either one of you address the higher income question? I've not experienced that.
I've never heard that at all.
Okay.
Over the years, as far as, I mean, every practice that offers sponsorship that I've come across, it's pretty much the same compensation range they're going to offer anybody else, to be honest. I've never seen a flux of a higher income or something like that. They're taking on the financial. What does have to happen, a practice, the OD has to be a W-2 employee. So any kind of practice that, like an optical, let's say an optician owned practice, they have a lot of ODs that have their own LLC or 1099. They work independently and they have to pay all their own taxes. They take care of their benefits. If you're a sponsored OD, you have to be a W-2 employed optometrist. That's one of the rules, and the practice has to pay for the fees to sponsor you. So yeah, but as far as the income, I've never heard that before, being a higher.
No.
Same here for me. I've not heard of that, and the practice realizes, to echo what Marc said, they're going to be looking at paying $5,000 following year to get that H-1B sponsorship.
Oh, I see Marc made a comment there. Okay, yeah, the employer cannot reduce the salary of an H-1B candidate. They're not required to offer sponsorship. It's the practice's choice. Yeah.
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 Great.
That's a good point.
Thank you, Michael, Marc, and Sheri. Looks like that is all the questions we have coming in right now, and I'll let you know if someone else messages me.
Thank you. So before you apply, there are some steps you should take before you begin applying. Before you start submitting your resume, make sure that your references are ready. Make sure all your references know they may be contacted. Some things to include when providing your references: name, contact information, title, and relationship. and look into the practice before you apply, and especially before you interview. If you want to stand out, just go to their website and you will notice they have a blog and just added a new doctor. I don't know what happened to our technical. I guess that's our technical issue of the night. Sorry about that. All right, let's get back on track. So, okay, there we go. They have a blog and just added a new doctor. During your interview, you can bring up a topic that they have written about or ask them what makes this the right time to add another doctor. Are they expanding? Have they experienced a spike in demand? Also, do some research about the area. If you like to run, you would discover that there are 2 parks nearby in the yellow circles with running opportunities. Now, bringing this up during your interview process shows that you are genuinely interested in the opportunity, are a diligent individual, and are really picturing yourself in this area. Now, while you are doing research on them, they are doing research on you. Check your social media to make sure there aren't posts or comments that might not represent you at your absolute best. LinkedIn is a great place to make your professional impression. Have a professional picture, an up-to-date bio, and stay active on your page. A professional picture should be against a neutral background, should focus on your face, and not go much past your shoulders. Now, as you can see, we did a little research of our own, and we found Ryan's LinkedIn profile. And just as we expected, his picture is a great example of what a professional picture should be. Good job, Ryan. So now that you've done the prep work, you are ready to go up to bat. When submitting your applications, here are some tips on your resumes and cover letters. So we recommend including each of these on your resume or CV. Contact information, licenses and permits, education, residency and other notable CE, rotations. Even if you haven't completed your rotations, go ahead and put the locations on your resume. This will give the hiring authority an idea of what clinical skill sets you are pursuing and are interested in. Employment history, professional and/or educational honors, professional and/or educational memberships, and community service. Now, cover letters should be used when applying to a specific person. Make sure it is specific to the practice, explains what makes you want to join their team, and highlights what sets you apart. They already have your resume, so don't waste time restating it. Specifically connect your desires and their goals. Now, the application process is a bit different when you work with ETS, and I know we covered this a little bit earlier, but you will work with Michael, Marc, or myself, and we will have a one-on-one interview with you to learn more about what you are looking for. The clamps model, basically, we talk about that and other things. From there, we use our industry relationships to find the best opportunity for you. The other members of ETS Vision that we talked about earlier often make hundreds of calls to an area just to find potential practices for our candidates. And again, this is all a free service to you. So now that the practice has your application, they are ready to start the interview process. Before moving on to the first call, initial screen, any questions about prep for applying and applying?
I did get one message directly. I think this would be a good one for you, Michael. we had a question on how long should a new graduate's resume be?
I find about a 2-page resume is usually, I think, can fit the bill. I've seen some that have been up to 6 pages. I think 1 page is too short in a way, because it doesn't give enough background. And being a student, I'm sure you would want to put some of your internships, externships to bring that resume CV over into a 2-pager to really so it gives a good background about yourself to that practice.
Great, thank you, Michael. I am not seeing any other questions coming in right now, so
Okay.
looks like we're good to move on, Sheri.
Sheri, actually, I got a message directly
Okay.
from a student, and the question is, are we able, I think this goes back to your previous slide about, the services that you offer are free for them as a job seeker. The question is, are we able to contact ETS for the job search after graduation, for maybe a couple months later, for example, or does it have to be before they graduate or within a certain time frame? In other words, is it only free for them as a current student, or as a job seeker, are these services free on that side of the equation?
That is a great question, because we did not make that clear. I appreciate that question. So yes, we are a free service for candidates searching for a job, optometrists, because practices want us to find the best potential optometrists out there that are the best fit for their practice. And that's what we do. We are a free service. If you're looking for a position, we are here to help you. Or even when maybe 10 years or so, you're looking for a practice to purchase, we can help with that also. We can look.
Great, thank you, Sheri.
Okay.
Ryan, did you get any other questions directly?
Nope, that was the only one. Thank you. That clarifies that for us.
Good,
Thanks.
good. Okay, so let's talk about the first call. Employers will contact you to schedule an initial call, and they want to determine if the practice and the position might be a good match with your skills and goals. So this part of the interview is about the employer. Ask a lot of questions. It is your job to solve their problem. Now you have to establish that you are worthy of solving it. So since it is about them, don't ask about compensation. That turns employers off, and if you ask them, they probably aren't going to end up paying you anything. While many eye care companies, groups, and practices may have set compensation models, I assure you that if you have shown you are really worth it, they will be willing to negotiate the package. However, they will not and cannot do this without first meeting you in person and thoroughly understanding you and how you may fit into their organization. So ask a lot of questions, because if you want to invest your career here, you would want to know a lot about it. And by the way, Ryan's including a link to suggested questions in the email about our next presentation. So the devil is in the details. People can hear you smile. So smile, even if the interview is over the phone. Show you are engaged and respectful of their time by returning any communication promptly. Make sure they know what excites you about the opportunity. Thank you cards and emails show your appreciation, create a strong impression, and are a tool to bring something up that you may have missed or a point you would like to bring up again. Now, every interview is great practice, and everyone is different. If you nail one, that doesn't mean you will nail the next one. So you might as well learn every chance you get. It is also important to not count your chickens before they hatch. You shouldn't act like you have an offer until you have the offer. It is also important to remember that the purpose of this first screen is to get to the in-person interview. So ask for it. Ask them what next steps are, or say that you are excited about the opportunity and would like to come in so you can learn more about the opportunity. Throughout this process, don't get discouraged. It takes several phone screens and interviews to earn an offer. And now that you've secured the interview, it is important to remember a few things. For starters, make sure you have researched the practice and know some questions you would like to ask them. Have your resume and references printed and ready to go so you can hand them over in case the employer did not get a chance to print them out. What practices are really asking themselves during this process is, do I want to work with this person, and how well will this person work with our team? They may invite you out to dinner. If you're eating, don't order anything messy. There's a good chance they will want your significant other to have buy-in on your decision, so they may invite them as well. Dress like you want the position. Now, if they want to talk salary or be on a first name basis, let them initiate it. Once they open the gate, you can walk down the path. Now, during the interview, make sure you are showing interest in the company. This means that you shouldn't lead with what is in it for you. The stage is still not about your needs. It's about the employer. Now, remember, every business owner looks at their business like it is their puppy. So ask them, what is your favorite thing about your puppy? What makes you proud of your puppy? How big will your puppy get? I mean, there are a lot of things you should know about the opportunity and a lot of questions to get those answers. And again, for those of you who gave us your email address with the sign-in survey, we'll be sending out a link to our blog that has great questions to ask during the interview. So it's important to remember that you will be working with the entire team. You're trying to leave a good impression with the entire team. We recently saw someone who was qualified not get the position. The practice administrator said they had a distinct ability to find the gray in the silver lining. No one likes a Debbie Downer. Now, show gratitude for the hiring manager using their valuable time getting to know you. Keep thank you cards in the car. Fill it out right after the interview and drop it off in a box close by the office so they get it quickly. Make sure you know when they will reach out to you or if they expect you to reach out. If there is no clear plan, go ahead and call them in 2 or 3 days. Offer to shadow or do a working interview. Make sure you reply to all communications in a timely manner. We can't stress this one enough. Even if you no longer want the position, never go dark on the employer. An offer you thought you had in the bag could fall through. Now, the purpose of the interview is to get the position, so ask for it. Let's say you've got through all that, your resume was spotless, you aced every interview, and you made the smart move by working with ETS Vision. You earned the offer. But wait, there's more. Once you have the offer in hand, you might have questions like, is this compensation appropriate? Does this offer make sense for me in my situation? The contract does not cover something we talked about. What should I do? Well, we will cover these questions and many more next week at 7 when we cover what you should do once you have an offer in hand. Again, this is my contact information. We're going to send out everybody's in the email. But take a moment. And then the only thing left is, what questions do you have for us?
Right. Haven't gotten any questions directly yet, but I think we're good to turn on the video now that the bulk of the presentation's up.
And this was excellent, and I hopefully all of you can kind of get a sense here when I talk about the job search process. I really emphasize the word process. This is not something that's going to happen the day before you graduate in May. It does take some time, and this is there was a perfect question that just came in along those lines. How long does it typically take for the hiring process from the time a student contacts you at ETS to the time they actually get the offer? What's the window that we're looking at?
Well, it can vary. I hate to not give you a definite answer. When you're working with us, we can give you a better idea of the process with each different practice. A lot of it will depend on where you are location wise. Does the practice really want you to come visit the practice, or do you really want to visit a practice before committing, or are you okay with a Zoom? There are a lot of variables. I can say that we are here to help keep the process and communication flowing. That's very important. The grad that I was talking about that's getting an offer this week, she was amazing at letting me know I'm so excited about this opportunity. So I immediately called the owner of the practice. I said, she's really excited. Where are you? He just got busy and he hadn't gotten that offer out. And he said, do they usually get offers this early? And I said, yes, they want it. So we're here to help move the process along. And I wish I could tell you that every practice is a little different. If anybody wants to add anything, Marc or Michael.
Yeah. I've seen the whole gamut, the whole scope. I've seen offers come within a week to 2 weeks, or even maybe sometimes sooner. And then a lot of time, it depends on how many candidates they have to go through too. If the practice is really super nice practice and a lot of people would love to work there, they might work their way through a lot of different candidates. So of course it makes it tougher competition. But then I've seen it go as long as 3 months or something like that too, depending on what's going on with the practice. Or sometimes they might put a little hold on something for a bit. But if you're the right candidate, they think it's a great fit and you think it's a great fit, a lot of times they won't waste any time. They don't want to lose somebody, that's for sure.
I'd like to chime in here. I use the word advocate a lot. When I first came here, I heard that, and we truly are an advocate for you. And we're also an advocate for the practice. We're a true middle person here. And so that makes it great what Sheri said about when she was contacted by a candidate, she quickly called that practice or notified that practice of this interest that this candidate had. So we can double the efforts for you, so to speak. So it's just to keep that, it's a key thing to have someone beside you helping you to try to get that goal of yours, reach that goal.
Right. We did have one student curious about the account executive in charge of Maryland. So if Marc, you want to introduce yourself for a second?
Yeah. I cover Marc Arrington. I cover Maryland. It's where I start. Sheri picks up above Maryland through the rest of the Northeast. I cover Maryland, DC Metro down through the Southeast. So I'm working with a lot of practices in Maryland now. Some are closer to the DC Metro area. Some are further away. And whether it's up above Baltimore or some down in Southern Maryland, really all over the state. I've got a lot of practices I've worked with for years. And right now I'm actually working with a lot of practices in Maryland. So it ebbs and flows like anything. Some of the states, sometimes you're very busy in some states and sometimes you have a little bit less here or there. But yeah, it's a beautiful state to, similar to Pennsylvania. I mean, Pennsylvania and Maryland are very similar as far as geography and climate and everything like that.
Yeah. And if anyone else is curious about the contact information or who's responsible for covering a certain state, we are including that in the email for those of you who opted into future communications from ETS Vision. If you regret not opting in and you clicked no on the survey, feel free to message me directly and we'll add your contact information to it.
I had a message come in. The student said, I've heard from some optometrists that she knows that there is some market saturation in some states. Have you noticed any difficulties for students getting jobs in particular states? And maybe it's not on a state level, it might be a little bit more regionally specific, but.
I believe the metropolitan areas, Mark and Michael and I all don't get a lot of opportunities in the really large metropolitan areas and really close to optometry schools for obvious reasons. A lot of optometrists go to school there, they love the area and they end up staying. The areas do tend to be a little more saturated. So New York City is an area that is tough. If I get a position, they're going to want something special, whether it's a second language or interest in scleral contact lens or something. But we do get positions everywhere. Just have to check with us and see. We'll be happy to reach out again into areas and try and find you what you're looking for. We're an extra set of eyes and ears to help you.
I have a question. We have seen the number of our graduating students that choose to go on to complete a residency, that the percentage, the representation has increased. I'm going to say over the past decade, we've gone from about maybe 22% of our class going to residency afterwards to upwards of, I think about 30% of our class did a residency in 2019 or 2020. What do you see as far as residency out there? Are residency trained doctors in high demand? Are there particular benefits to someone having completed a residency coming out for their first job? Just curious, with this residency training gaining a little bit of popularity, what are you seeing on your end?
Sure. Well, I think we have great positions for residents and new grads. Obviously, it's a very personal choice, what you want to do and what is right for your situation. I see optometrists coming right out of school working in medically focused practices. Obviously, most residents coming out are more disease oriented unless they're doing a ped residency. But primarily I'm dealing with them interested in ophthalmology practices. I have a few ophthalmology practices that will only look at residency trained or someone with several years of experience in a medical setting. But I also work with ophthalmology practices that will take new grads. What about you, Mark and Michael? What are you seeing?
Yeah, definitely. And I have the same thing. I'll say right off the top, it's a very small percentage that are only looking for residency trained doctors. Most every practice, probably all of us work with, most of them are going to be very interested in talking to a new grad. Not all of them. Some of them are going to want someone with 2 or 3 years experience or more, but it's a pretty high percentage. And I've got some ophthalmology practices that they say they only want to hire residency trained ODs, but then when they come across a really good candidate that might have a year or two experience, or even if a really good new grad, this extremely great personality, and they seem to be already on top of their skills coming out of school, they'll make an exception, I think. But yeah, for the most part, optometry compared to even like our dental recruiting team that we have here, we have new grads that are much more in demand. I think they're always looking, because a lot of the practices like to train the doctors themselves. They love a new grad. They like them coming right out of school, so they can train them themselves how they want them to practice in their particular modality.
Yeah, to echo what both Sheri and Mark said, I find the same thing. A very few of my practices that I've dealt with really specifically say that they have to have a residency in their CV or resume, and they're very open to talking to new grads and those that have a couple years experience on up. There's really very few have preference. But I think one of the reasons may be because the schools are doing such a good job training these students coming out that they will look at a student going into an MDOD practice very easily and very trainable, like Marc said. So it's a catch. It can be a plus and a minus in a way.
Right.
You have residency.
Yeah,
And Salus has great rotations. So that's a benefit.
it doesn't surprise me what Ryan said about it being around maybe 30% now. I've been seeing an uptick in new grads looking to do a residency. I've always figured around 25% is what I've always thought was a general range of what students do coming out that take a residency. So that doesn't surprise me that it's getting closer to 30% now.
Yeah, and 25 has been an average for a number of years. It's a little surprising. I think it's a bit unique to PCO that we're upwards of 30, because I can't say that we have seen an increase in additional residency positions.
Right.
So I guess that's a testament to how well trained our doctors are that they're securing these residency positions.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yes, it is. That you have that high of a percentage, that says a lot.
More competitive. If there are more doctors looking for residencies, there's going to be fewer. It's going to be some upset ODs. They don't get the residency they want to get.
There are.
There is something to say one thing, though. It does help tip the scale, I think, though, if you do have an ocular disease residency on your CV versus someone who doesn't, that you have maybe the same amount of years. That might, like say you only have 2 years experience, but you have an ocular disease residency, may weigh a little bit more in your favor of getting that position. Something to down the road consider.
Yeah, and I think that, Sheri, it's something you said in the very beginning. If any of you do decide to work with ETS, I think that the hopefully I get the acronym right, the CLAMPS assessment that you do could really help to help you as a student decide, is a residency the right route for me based on what your priorities are, and if income is a real consideration for you. You need to look at the long-term benefits of doing a residency versus the short-term. I'll tell you that residents are paid between $40,000 and $65,000 for that year of residency.
Right.
That's going rate depending on your area, versus coming out and making potentially $120,000, $150,000. So again, I think that CLAMPS assessment that you do could be really helpful for a student. Again, when's the best time to contact you? Well, if you're going into your third year and you're deciding whether or not you're going to apply to a residency, go through that equation first and determine what your priorities are, and that will help to steer you in the right direction as you go into your fourth year.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not a resume service. We are a personal service. We talk with our practices. We really find out what they're looking for in candidates, what their priorities are, patient flow. And when we talk with optometrists, that's what we're trying to find out, is where they're going to be comfortable, and then just tell them about all the great opportunities that we have that might be a good fit.
Great. I haven't gotten any more questions directly to me. Ryan, have you gotten any questions?
Nope. All the ones I've gotten have been answered.
Great.
Awesome. And once again, for those of you who opted into our email, we'll have the contact information for everyone sent out, as Sheri alluded to earlier, a link to our blog post with some questions you can expect from optometry practices and some questions you can ask them as well. And don't forget about next week at 7 o'clock on Monday again. We'll be talking about different things to consider when you are looking at an offer.
Great.
Awesome. Well, I believe that is it. We appreciate your time. And Ryan, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. The pleasure has been mine. Thank you all again. And I look forward to part 2 next week. And we'll
Great.
see everybody there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Right. Have
All
a great
right.
night, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep. Have a great night. Thank you.